P1, then you have the P2 pulse for side lobe suppression, and then P3. The distance between P1 and P3 will tell you which mode it is. If it is 8, it is going to be mode A, and 21 microsecond corresponds to mode C. Okay. Why I'm telling about mode C is this is the thing which is being used even in TCAS. Okay. So what we'll be discussing subsequently, that will be using mode C. Mode S is slightly different. Uh, Historically, what happened was when they implemented mode S, majority of the aircrafts are still using mode A and mode C. So if you develop a new system, it's not only it should meet the additional specifications, but it should be compatible with the existing systems also. It's something like your Windows, okay? When they come out with some Windows version, it is downward compatible with the previous versions. So similarly, they came out with this. When they came out with Mode S, they ensured that the same equipment works well for the previous modes also, that is A and C. So the addition of this is one P4 pulse was added to both mode A and mode C. Mode A by the time was almost out and it was just mode C. And for mode C, they had used this one. I added one more P4 pulse so that the mode S transponder will understand it's a mode S interrogation. Otherwise, the mode S transponder was downward compatible with mode A and C, so it would have just given a reply mode A or C reply. But because of this P4 pulse, it will understand that it is a valid modus interrogation. Now there are two types of P4 pulses. One is called the short one, the other one is long one. The short one was used for if it is 0.8 microseconds, it was used for selective call, what Sanjay was trying to explain in the previous class. And if it is 1.6 microseconds, it is all call. Okay, so I told you it's like a broadcast. It's trying to find out how many modus aircrafts are there in the coverage area. That's all call. Whereas if it is 0.8 microseconds, it is selective call. Okay, that's one of the steps by which they try to differentiate aircrafts. Okay. Now, if you look at mode S, selective call, uh, there was additional pulse P6 and all those things. But how do you think they would have suppressed normal mode A or C transponder from replying? Because we don't want mode A and C transponders to jam the frequency, okay, at the same time. So you somehow, whenever my mode S interrogation is going, I want to ensure that during that period, the mode C should be suppressed. Uh, any idea from the class? Looking at the slide. Sandita, can you just make an attempt? Can you hear me, Sandita?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. The question is, whenever there's a mode S interrogation, I don't want a mode C to reply. Somehow I should block it. So how will I block it? So you have P1, P3. The distance between P1 and P3 is going to give you the mode. Okay. But how do I ensure that this mode C doesn't respond to it? And assuming that they're perfectly 21 microseconds. But still, I don't want the mode C to respond. A very simple solution. Sanjita, are you getting the question?
Yes, sir. I got the question.
Uh, let's say some older generation aircraft is also flying in the same coverage area, fitted with a mode C transponder. Whereas my mode S is going to work now. Is presently working, but I don't want that old aircraft to reply. Yeah. Anyone else from the class? Sanjay?
Sir, I read about this something using the P4 pulse, but I'm not sure what it is. I don't remember what it is.
Yeah, but can you just make a wild guess? I should block those mode C transponders. That's the aim. Okay, it's quite simple. Okay, all you have to do is transmit one P2 pulse of the same amplitude. So what will happen if P2 and P1 are of the same amplitude in a normal transponder?
It won't reply.
Why?
So because it will think it as side lobe.
Excellent, sir. That's all. It will think as if it's coming from side lobe, and then it will stop replying. Okay. So that's how they used to block the mode C transponders.
Sir, why won't mode S get blocked in that situation?
See, that's what it's a compromise. Okay. It's let us say the aircrafts are flying at very long distances. You definitely know that it's not going to side lobes are not going to be there. That's how you ensure that. Okay, fine. At least in those ranges, I like to block mode C transponders. Okay. Now, Sanjay was talking about all call and selective call. Okay, all roll call. So during all call period, you will get they have made it in. You can also switch over to that mode in which you get mode A and C also. That is the first waveform which I was showing. Just to keep track, because you don't want to get into a situation that you have traffic with mode A and mode C and you lose them. But primarily during this all call period in mode S, you try to acquire all mode S aircraft in that coverage area. Whatever is there in the coverage area, you try to acquire them. So you have all call followed by roll call and then all call, and that so the sequence goes on. So that's how you keep track of what's happening.
Sir, 1 minute.
Yeah.
Even at far distance, the modest transponder won't know that. It won't know the distance of the radar, no, sir.
You know, modus doesn't depend on the P2.
Oh, okay.
It just looks at P1 and P3. Okay, and they use the de facto mode C standard. So it will just realize. See, one thing is like, though we call this whole system as a radar, it's actually a digital communication, right, between aircraft and ground.
Yes, sir.
So you're just making some protocol so that all aircrafts will understand your interrogation, and then call that protocol as modus. Getting it? Hmm?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, defruiting. When we talked about fruiting, is you're interrogating in a normal mode C scenario. You're interrogating an aircraft, your ground station, I mean, and some other ground station is also interrogating. So you get pulses from both the replies rather from both interrogations. So now you get a reply which is interleaved. Okay? So that's called as fruiting. So this particular thing can be overcome by using the interrogation identity. That's what Sanjay was trying to explain. So this first figure shows an all call interrogation. In that, one of the field will give the ground radar's identity, and the same identity will be used for replying. Okay, so when you get some reply, you're getting, say, let's assume fruiting has happened and you're getting 2 replies. You will check this particular field in the reply. Only if it matches your own interrogation code, then only you will accept it as a valid reply. Otherwise, you just ignore it. Of course, the next question will be, will the data be corrupted and all those things? It's a stream of data, I think 64-bit or something. They have a parity bit also overlaid in it. So that takes care of all these corruptions. Okay. So that a little bit of error correction is also there. But the issue is, main issue is, fruiting is avoided generally because of this. Your reply also has the interrogation code of the ground radar. Next comes the garbling issue. Okay, we talked about garbling. One radar interrogating 2 aircrafts in the vicinity. Both are replying, and how do we overcome that? That was the problem with garbling. Okay. Here they used a technique called a probabilistic acquisition. Whenever an interrogation is sent, they give a range of probability of replying from, I think, 25% to 75%. What it means is, this particular probability is passed on to the aircraft. Now it is up to the aircraft to take a decision, okay, at random, whether it wants to reply or not, or it doesn't want to reply. So let's say see 4 cases. Let's make it simple. No? Let's say the probability is 0.5. So you send the interrogation pulse. Both Y aircraft and X aircraft, these are 2 aircrafts, they are almost in the same range. Both are getting the interrogation pulse, and they both decide that, okay, this time I am going to reply back. So both are replying, and you end up with garble. After some time, the next interrogation pulse, X decides because it's probability, right? It says, okay, fine, this time I'll not reply. So it keeps mum. X is not going to reply. But Y decides, okay, I'll reply. So it replies, and then the system will lock out Y. System means the ground radar, that we'll see. There's a provision for lockout. So the ground radar will lock out Y after acquiring Y. Then the third probability is both X and Y do not reply. That's why nothing is going to come. Now what has happened is Y is already locked out. This time X decides, okay, I'll reply. So X replies, and then the system will lock out X also. So that's how X and Y gets, you acquire both X and Y. So though it looks slightly vague, because we are doing it so many times, the situation, all four cases are possible, and then finally you land up with acquiring both X and Y, though they are both in the vicinity of each other. That's how they minimize garbling. It's not that they eliminate garbling totally, but sufficient enough for coverage. So these are a little bit, few more information what I got on MODIS, in addition to what Sanjay was trying to say.
Sir, how will X and Y know when to reply and when not to?
That's all. They just take decisions, a random decision. This time I'll reply, next time I'll not reply. And these are happening in milliseconds. Okay, this keep on repeating. So there's always a probability that you end up with case 2 and case 3. This one and 2 and 4. It's not going to be, because it's so random, it cannot always be 1 and 3. Getting it? No?
Yes, sir.
It's not total elimination, but definitely you're overcoming the problem to a certain extent. Once it is locked out, then there is no issues. Okay. After that, it is selective call. Sarup, are you getting this point? It is only till you acquire and lock that aircraft, you have the problem of garbling. After that, there is no garbling.
Yes, sir. Sir, but if
Yeah.
a friendly plane decides not to reply
Which one?
soon,
Sorry?
if a friendly aeroplane, a
No,
friend,
all we are talking about cooperative systems. All are friendly, equally friendly.
okay.
It's not up to the pilot to choose whether the transponder is going to reply or not.
Okay, sir.
He has no control. Okay. In a IFF, that issue might be there, but not in SSR. Here, the pilot has no control other than giving some information. Is it okay, Sarup?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Can you see the next slide?
Yes, sir.
TCAS. Okay. Yeah. The last one, but one topic in this module is TCAS, Traffic Alert and Collision Avoidance System. Okay. This slide which we saw in the previous semester also. So it is both in range as well as altitude. Okay. So you have distance as well as altitude. Range information, if there is a probability of not probably, it's a possibility of two aircraft colliding in the next 25 seconds. Actually, it's 20 seconds, I think, in some standards. 20 seconds. Then there is something called as a resolution advisory, which is given. RA. That is, resolution advisory is, it says whether you should climb up or climb down, so that you don't collide with the aircraft. But up to, I think, 14 nautical miles, all aircrafts are tracked by the TCAS aircraft, and any aircraft in that area, if any intruder comes into that area, then a traffic advisory is given. So you have a resolution advisory and a traffic advisory in azimuth. In altitude, I think it is 700 feet nowadays. Any aircraft which is above or below 700 feet, any intruder aircraft, then a resolution advisory is given so that you can take the same evasive action. So resolution advisory is like this. You climb. One aircraft is told to climb, the other one aircraft is told to descend. Now the question is, how do they both, which one decides it should climb and the other one decides it should go down? So this complete link is through MODES. See, MODES has a lot of additional capacity. Okay, so many bits, I think 64 bits or something is being used. So you're hardly using any of that capacity for normal surveillance. So you have a lot of space for additional information. So MODES is the link through which both aircrafts communicate, and some protocol has been done so that one will be told to descend, the other one will be told to climb. So in MODES, you have generally nowadays it's all TCAS 2, which is used. TCAS 3 is not being implemented. Then we'll see what is TOW, Garble, Mode C and S operations. Multipath effect is not very important. So the initial generation TCAS just provided a traffic advisory. Okay. TCAS 2 gave traffic advisory as well as resolution advisory, and it's restricted to the vertical plane. No azimuth guidance. TCAS 3 was supposed to give both horizontal as well as vertical, but due to some technical reasons, they have done away with TCAS 3. It's not going to be implemented. So it's basically TCAS 2 only now. Where actually TCAS 3 was creating more problems than solving problems. Because if aircraft starts deviating from the path too much, then you are actually going into some other aircraft's path, and then you can lead. It could lead to a very unstable system. The heart of all TCAS is again the MODES transponder. Okay. This is where the actual links are going to take place. In addition, you'll have some TCAS also communicating with the, if suppose you have TCAS to TCAS aircraft, then there is communication taking place between these two aircrafts through these antennas also. Now they are shown antennas at the top and bottom. And the bottom one, they are telling it's optional. Any wild guesses why it is so? And the probability of mid-air collision is where the air traffic is more, okay, and that's going to happen at very low altitudes. So you really don't want these TCAS giving false alarms from aircrafts which are actually parked on the runway. So that's why they have very low power or very less sensitive channels in the bottom antenna. Most of the cases they are done away with it also. Okay. Now they, instead of giving range as a parameter, we use something called as tau. Okay. So it's nothing but range by range rate. So the units is going to be so many seconds. The advantage is you really want to know how fast the intruder is closing on to you. It's not like you can fix a distance. So that if you're just telling so much distance or so much altitude, you lose that information. Unnecessarily, you're creating problems. So they came out with this concept of tau, and that's the parameter which is being used for all collision control, collision avoidance logic. So one of the reference says that now they're going to track all aircrafts up to 14 nautical miles. So if you look at this slide carefully, what they have done is, if it is closing in time and altitude, and the next 20 seconds, I was telling you, if there is going to be a collision, then there is a threat which is then generated by the RA. The other possibility is in time. I'm talking in time. Both are. It's going to be a mid-air collision. Both the aircrafts, DCAS and the intruder aircrafts, are following the same direction, are coming in the opposite directions, and they are going to collide. And here they are given a restriction of 20 seconds each. Okay, so there is going to be a collision at this point. This aircraft, if it's maintaining the same closure rate, in next 20 seconds, you're going to have a collision. If you're talking in terms of distance, the limit is, as I told you, it is 750 feet. So any aircraft coming within 750 feet, it's going to generate one alarm. And if it is close in distance, it can also be a tail chase. Okay, it's not head on. Intruder is flying very slow, whereas the TCAS aircraft is flying fast. Again, there is a possibility of collision. So these were the sort of limits that has been fixed for this TCAS control logic. So what's going to happen is, suppose, let's say, there is an aircraft which is flying, a slow-moving aircraft, and your aircraft is climbing down, and this guy is climbing up. At this particular point, somewhere here they must have collided. So you fix this 20 seconds criteria, tau, and then say, okay, before this aircrafts cross these 2 points, I like to take evasive action. So by the time this threat aircraft reaches this point, some time has elapsed. So you decide that your own aircraft is going to climb up. So now what's going to happen is, though the intruder is going to follow his own path like this, you would have taken a evasive action and you would have gone up. So that's how you avoid collision. Now this is a case where your own aircraft is having TCAS, but the intruder is working on mode C. So he doesn't know whether to climb up or climb down, he just goes on. Had it been a TCAS situation, the second intruder would have taken a evasive action like this. And that particular communication is done by MODES. Yeah.
So,
next is, yeah.
I actually have a doubt.
Yeah.
What if both the planes that has TCAS,
Mhm.
will TCAS advise both the planes to take either climb or descend?
at the
So
same
what
time.
if what if one plane is nearer to the ground level so that it can't descend, neither can it climb. So will it advise it to like continue, or will it still will only a TCAS can give either two of these advices, like climb or descend,
Okay.
or does it have anything?
Yeah. Now, what in this scenario, what's going to happen is the climb or descent is an indication to the pilot. Okay. Now the pilot has to take a call. The one which has to climb will have no issues. He'll definitely climb. That pilot. Okay. It's not automated. Right? Final decision is with the pilot.
Okay.
The guy who is near to the ground, definitely he knows that there is some problem going on. So at least he'll try to come to the minimum level possible.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks.
But in spite of all this, accidents do occur. Okay. You can't eliminate it because it's not an automated system. It is the human element is always there.
Yeah, the moment of panic. Yes.
Yeah. If both pilots panic and they see the dial incorrectly, then there's going to be issues. Yeah. Garble, as you told, you want one aircraft only to reply, but you have other aircrafts also replying, then you get into problems. So three ways by which you can reduce garble. First is whisper shout. Second one is directional interrogations, and third is modus. In whisper shout, what we do is initially we transmit at very low power. This is a P1. So it's all again mode C. Okay, P1 P3 pulse. Then at a low power, this is the y-axis. You're having power. This is time. After some time, what you do is you don't you wait for the replies from all the transponders. Then you send one more pulse. Okay, this is sort of a preamble in which the modus will recognize it. Definitely, say, let us say aircrafts, first 10 aircrafts. Okay, let me draw it in azimuth. Let's say A and B are very close to the radar, and then you have C and D. The first instant, it's 21 microsecond. Okay, so mode C. A and B will receive it. The sufficient power so that A and B will receive and A and B will reply. I'm not talking about A and B very close to each other, but at least within that some prescribed area. So you get the reply and then you acquire those aircrafts. Next time, the subsequent mode C interrogation will have a preamble at the same level of the initial one. Let's say it's P1. So the preamble pulse is received by A and B. Now they know that they're not supposed to reply, so they don't reply for subsequent transmissions. Then you go for P1 and P2, P3, sorry, at a very high level. Now this C and D also will receive the interrogation pulse. Okay, so what now C and D will reply, whereas A and B will not reply. So that's how they segregate the whole thing into different sectors. So this can go on. This is just shown as two sets. Like that, you can have n sets. So you whisper and shout and whisper and shout and keep on doing that, so that you can have different areas of coverage. Directional interrogation is generally now all these TCAS antennas are actually 4 different antennas. So you have 90 degrees here and 90 like this. So you have 4 areas of coverage. So azimuth wise also you can have different sectors of coverage. And what you in mode S, what you are going to do is basically you acquire. Now I'm talking about modus from the TCAS equipment itself. Okay, it's not the modus. TCAS has nothing to do with the ground equipment. So it's as if a secondary radar is fitted on the aircraft. Okay, for the TCAS. So it goes into modus mode, acquires all aircrafts within 14 nautical miles. That is that all call what we saw in the normal modus radar. Now it acquires all aircraft and then selectively starts interrogating the aircraft. So there is no question of garble. So using these methods, these people are able to at least reduce garbling. That's all on TCAS. Okay. I'll share some PDFs with you on the AMS. Probably people can go through it. And all its TCAS is something which is mandatory on all aircrafts now. Without that, you can't fly any aircraft, other than some club level aircrafts. Okay. Anything you want to ask me about this TCAS? I'll ask one of your in fact, your seniors are doing a BTech project on free flight. Probably next class, I'll request them to give a small introduction. So that's an extension of TCAS. Free flight is, to put it very short, you don't have any flight. You need not file any flight plan. You can just take off and then go the way you want. Because TCAS will be one of the elements, but it has different techniques for collision avoidance. Probably that's what is going to happen in future. That'll be the next big thing which is going to happen in aviation. Because the moment you restrict aircraft to particular air lanes, you're losing out on efficiency. Okay. Here, if free flight, you can do the way you want. Wherever you want to fly, whichever altitude, whatever speed, time, you can do it. Okay. Sanjay, you want to ask me something?
Yes, sir. Can you repeat about whisper shout, sir?
Whisper shout. Okay, I have 4 aircrafts. XY, which is very close to the radar. Okay. Let's say 10 kilometers. Then I have P and Q, which is further away. Let's say around 50 kilometers. And my antenna is pointing towards, say, let's even forget about XY. Let's say X here and P here. My antenna is, at that particular instant is pointing in the same radial. Normally, garbling would have occurred, okay, because both are replying back, both X and P. Now, what I'm going to do is, I'll just make this simple. You have 2, both coming from the northerly direction. And I want to avoid garbling between X and P. Okay. So you have a garble between X and P. Both are in the same direction. So initially, I'll send the interrogation pulse at a very low power level, P1. Such that aircraft P will not receive it. Because it's at a farther distance. Okay, its power is 1 by R squared definitely it's not going to receive. And then X is going to reply. So you acquire X, okay. In fact, at this point itself, you can even lock out X. But still, let's say you're not doing that lockout right now. Next interrogation pulse is preceded by one more suppression pulse. Now this suppression pulse is at the same level as P1 and immediately follow it up with P1 and P3. Now this suppression pulse, which was at P1, is not received by aircraft P. Like, what's it? This aircraft is not going to receive it because the power level is very low. But the second interrogation of P1 and P3 pulses are at a higher power level. Let's put some numbers. This is 100 watts and this is 1 watt. Say, let's say 100 watts. Now this fellow, the second aircraft P, both X and P will receive it, but X knows that it should not reply because there is already a suppression pulse. Only the second aircraft P will reply. So that's how you keep on doing this for different sectors, okay? Different power ranges. You can segregate your coverage and then you prevent garbling. Is it okay, Sanjay?
Yes, sir. Got it, sir. Okay.
I'll share some PDFs with you. Okay. You can go through it. So let me see, like next class, I'll try to arrange a small presentation on free flight by your seniors. And then only one more mod. When is your periodical is on 19th, right? Sanjay?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Just one more small module on data bus. So with that, we'll be able to complete module 2 for the periodicals. Okay. Okay. Then see you everyone. We'll meet in the next class.